My guest today is filmmaker Dan Rubottom, and he has 36 years of experience in film and television, and he is sought after extensively for his creative and technical skills in cinematography, editing, motion graphics, visual effects, and even color grading. Now, he has directed, shot, and edited award-winning episodic television, documentaries, even commercials, short films on more, and more on multiple continents. But he has worked with incredible people such as Joel Osteen, Palau, Rascal Flatts, and Toby Mac, even the late Carman, and the legendary Oral Roberts, to name a few. Now, after completing 18 years at Joel Osteen Ministries as senior producer, Dan now runs DMR Films, writing and producing feature film projects, doing creative consulting with internationally branded organizations, and content-driven projects. Now, Dan is also an adjunct professor and the artist in residence at Oral Roberts University's cinema and television program, running the brand new state-of-the-art LED Volume XR stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the multi-talented filmmaker extraordinaire, Dan Rubottom, to the show. Welcome, my friend.
Wow. Thank you, Ward. What a great, very extensive introduction there. I appreciate that. That's I feel very warm and fuzzy inside.
Well, I had to shorten it because you have a very long resume.
Oh, yeah, it happens, I guess, when you just keep at it. Keep trying to kick the ball down the field.
Yeah. Well, when did you fall in love with the art of filmmaking?
I guess, like a lot of filmmakers my age, it kind of started maybe around the Star Wars thing. When that came out, me and my buddies used to do little stop motion films with a Super 8 camera that my dad bought when he was in Vietnam. And we would put it on a little construction paper and make little lasers and explosions out of cotton balls and tinfoil. And we'd do sword fights out in the back. And it was all just kind of fun, back then. I didn't really think I would do it necessarily. I was just pursuing, just stuff I like doing. But I always also just kind of was gravitated towards anything with a knob, like my dad's stereo table. I spent hours just tweaking that, even when I was, I think, 1 year old or 6 months old in a walker or whatever, walking up there and I turned the volume all the way up and then turned the power on. It was on an FM station, and my mom said I just flew out of that thing, and that was kind of the start of it, probably.
Well, did you go to school to learn filmmaking, or were you self-taught like many are in the industry today?
I did go to school. It's a lot of self-taught too. So yeah, I went to ORU in Tulsa here, which is where I'm at in the studio. I got my degree in television production and took some film classes also. But I was always trying to, TV was my major, and I did a lot of live television, live directing cameras. But I was always trying to make video look like film. And that was just like the aesthetic I liked. I liked TV commercials and movies. But yeah, and then just a lot of self-taught on top of that. But that kind of helped me learn how to learn and kind of gave me a good base.
Well, yeah, you have to get out there and start gaining some experience, and a lot of it is all trial and error, isn't it?
It really is. There's so many things that I learned just by experimenting. I would see a commercial. I would like, how did they do that? And I just would, really one of the things I would do is would experiment with lighting. What happened when I put a light over here instead of here, and then I turned it down, and all the little things that start. Well, the light bulb goes off in your head. No pun intended. When you're in college, you're learning this stuff. You're really kind of exploring it. I put things in front of the lens. Would just like pieces of like jars or glass or anything. Just experiment to see what happened. And so a lot of that was it just had this intense desire to find out how did they make these great images. And I would just consume magazines back then, like American Cinematographer, Millimeter, Post, all these old magazines to just figure out how the greats would do this stuff.
Well, how did ministry become a part of your filmmaking?
Well, ministry has always been a part of my life. Like I grew up in church, got saved when I was 6 years old, and just I always I think it real probably started really when I was doing sound for my mom when she was doing Sunday school. When I was 9, 10 years old, I figured out how to do the sound system in there, and I loved it. It was just like sound was my first love, really, in a lot of ways. So it was just embedded into kind of my DNA, and I always wanted to serve the Lord in what I do. And that was really, I always saw myself as a Christian first and then a filmmaker second. I should say I always saw that, like in terms of my whatever career I was going to do. I was first. Ministry was really my heart, and so how was I going to do that? And I always wanted to try to elevate ministry production or faith based kind of projects higher. Not be. Um, it should be the best stuff out there.
Yeah,
That was my goal. Is to
yeah,
just yeah.
I agree. And yeah, and it's funny because here you are at ORU, and it was Oral Roberts that created faith-based television and becoming the very first minister to have a global television audience just by stepping out in faith and doing it.
That's right. I mean, I'm glad you said that because I mean that really is. I feel honored to have come here and to study here, but also be able to work on his program, like personally with him, travel with him. Um, and I always, there's a lot of things he said, but one of the things that stuck with me is, make no small plans here. That was the thing that was on his desk. And I think I'm saying that right, right? But like he had a vision, like he could like he wanted to do great things, and he didn't let things stop him. He would believe God and how to do it, and he would just ask questions, find the right people. And so if I ever get discouraged about like, how do I do this or how do I do that, I just look across the street here and I see a 60-story tower that he built, that's like amazing. It's got kind of a testament to what you can do when you believe God and you work with people to make great things happen. So, and filmmaking is a great. Um, I see how it really. I see how it benefits so much from that exposure to him.
Well, what kind of changes, since you've worked with Oral Roberts, what kind of changes have you seen in church media today from the early days of Christian television to the rise of mega ministries like Joel Osteen?
Well, I mean, it's changed so much since kind of the inception of when he started, when things were even shot on film, and then went to big cameras and all that. But even in the time that I have been in part of it, it's changed just so drastically. Like I remember in my church that I grew up in Salem, Oregon, the only cameras they had was this little like VHS camcorder, or it wasn't even yeah, it was like it had an umbilical cord going to a separate recorder. And I was mildly interested in that. I was more interested in sound back then, but there was no real priority on TV back then. This is like in the 80s. And then, about a few years later, I kind of joked about, with my friends, would be like, oh, yeah, you could get a job at a church as a pastor of media or something. Like, haha, that funny. Well, that's like so the reality today. Like, that's like commonplace. So just to see, how cameras have become so prolific in TV production like today, that rival, network productions, control rooms, and all the equipment. And I could go on. To a lot of detail there on the formats, and I could geek out. But it's been a lot of change.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I went to Lakewood for like 11 years, and I would stare at all of the cameras and the giant boom in the sanctuary, and then you would see the sound booth. It's just this massive square of equipment. So while filming for Joel Osteen, what would you say was the biggest highlight when you worked with him?
There were many, but I would say probably the biggest thing was when we moved into the Compact Center and renovated that building into a 16,000 seat sanctuary, and had a brand new, media floor on the 5th floor of a new building, and that was exciting. But really, the cool thing about it specifically for me was I got to do this video that was kind of a retrospective, uh, dramatic intro piece that they were going to play at the very first service, and so um, we called it the trailer or something. We basically, I spent months finding old tapes, audio tapes, film, video of John Osteen, and like audio clips he would say, and tried to figure out how I could kind of juxtapose it with Joel Osteen saying similar things and how there was a transition there. So basically, I did this video that's I think it was 90 seconds long. It was it had, I don't know how much, so many audio tracks. I mean, I did it all basically on an Avid, and then had thousands of After Effects layers, and I built little picture frames with Joel, and then like John Osteen, and I, did this big 3D space montage, and I mean, I loved it. It was just so fun working on, but that got a lot of really good feedback. I mean, it was kind of the perfect. It worked out to be really great for that moment, moving to that building. And I remember showing it to some people before that day that we were going to play it on the big screen, and I'd look over and they had tears coming down their face, and that's really what I wanted was for the video to move people, and not to be all flashy and isn't this cool and this is cool what I did, but like to really feel in their heart what they just witnessed, and that they're kind of like in the middle of this great thing that God was doing there.
Well, did that lead into those video opens before every service?
We were already kind of doing those video openings before the service, even in the old building, but it definitely, I would say, kind of accelerated the thought of how we could do them, like kind of elevate them to the next level. We did the Champion in You series. That was in the old building, and they shot that on 35mm film to show us yeah,
Oh, shot on
different
35
videos that were
millimeter?
playing. Yeah, yeah, it was like with a full film crew, and the great thing about that is, of course, it looked fantastic, but even in those days, the broadcast was still standard definition. It wasn't HD yet, and so years later, they retransferred that film to HD, and it was still, I mean, it looked even better, So that was a really good thing about it. Of course, everybody was younger, didn't really use it for current day, but we would use it for, you know, uh, just doing retrospective kind of videos. But yeah, we really started to ramp up new openings I was going to say every year, but it wasn't every year. We would probably every few years. They would last several years, but we would basically, I get to rent like whatever camera that's current hot time to I would come up with an idea, like how do we do this whole thing like in super slow motion, so like the Phantom camera, Phantom Flex was really a moment. And so we did this video where I had all these guys, people being baptized in water at 2,500 frames a second. I called it God Vision. It was like just blew you away when you see the footage. Is just so I just had a lot of fun with doing that. Was kind of my main job, was special projects. So any short video that would make a big impact on the screen, and some other broadcast things.
Well, did you handle the filming at the Night of Hopes?
Yeah, I did at probably the first year. So I was at the very first event in Atlanta, and rented a camera there just to shoot documentary footage, and then I would do like a recap video, highlight video when we got back, kind of what happened. And then the big Yankee Stadium was really that. So I led the little mini documentary crew that we had, multiple cameras going there. The very first one of Yankee Stadium, though, we shot on the 5D. That just kind of come on the scene, the 5D Mark II, when it had the video option. And so we bought a whole kit with that and old Nikon manual lenses, because you couldn't control the f-stop or the shutter manually yet. And anyway, so those are some exciting kind of watershed moments. I can actually kind of like go back to major events when I was at Lakewood based on what camera had just come out. And then I would just like use it, how do we use the latest thing to do it? Like the red camera, when that came out, we used the red one for another opening. That was a lot of fun to do. It just, it looked amazing and exciting. So.
Well, were there any particular project at Lakewood that was probably considered the most challenging to do?
Well, that one I mentioned was probably up there with the most challenging. I would say in terms of that grand opening trailer is what we called it. And I can give you links to this. I don't know if you can add this or whatever, but you can go to my website too and see some of this stuff. But the other one would be probably the 2015. It was one of the last things I did before I left there, called the Horizons opening. And so we basically hired kind of several other key positions on a film crew. Like, it was still a very small crew. Like, I had a very small, all my budgets were very small, honestly. If people ask me that, they assume they'd be large, and they were not. They were very tight. I had it, down to how much tape stock would cost or how much hard drives. But I hired a production designer on that one and a locations manager. And because we're kind of hard to find locations, and you're doing like kind of 60s, 70s retro. And we're trying to find these old houses that were kind of mid-century. And so that was a lot of fun. But so we had a lot of fun. We shot about 3 or 4 days on that project. And that was all on, what did we shoot? Alexa and C300 and a drone. I think it was kind of a mixture of cameras. And then the post-production took a while, because kind of at the last minute, one of the leaders asked for, hey, could we introduce like some space elements into this? I'm like, okay. We storyboarded this whole open, like based on shot we had filmed, and so I'm like, well, yeah, we can. I would have been great to know that like 3 months ago when we were prepping this. But so the next like probably month and a half I spent just buried into After Effects again, and just doing like these. Okay, disclosure, Interstellar had just come out. Okay, so you had the big wormhole effect that was like blowing everybody's minds, and so I tried to kind of not replicate it, because that's that would not be very possible with just me doing it. But I did some kind of stylized versions of it, and just tried to make it work with. Anyway, it was an interesting montage of this completely fabricated space stuff, and with like these retro 70s, 60s and 70s families, and doing different everyday kind of things, but to this real inspirational music. Yeah, but anyway, that was complex, I guess, in the sense of all the different things that were happening in terms of the cast, and
Yeah. Now,
and we
when
had kind
did
of a
you?
creative team. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the midst of all that, were you doing uh, music videos while you were there at Lakewood? I mean, because you had filmed Rascal Flatts, you had Carman, Toby Mac. There's so many others. How did you work that in your schedule?
Yeah, well, a lot of like I did some music video projects at Lakewood, like for Cindy Cruz Ratcliffe. I did for Marcos Witt. I did some stuff for Ilse Houghton, some editing of some of his projects. I did a lot of I did a lot of freelance on the side. I had a separate company that I would do. I produced whole TV shows for that were airing on TBN, regular youth. These are a series of youth shows called This Generation with Eastman Curtis. We were traveling for that. What was the other video you mentioned? Music
There
video.
was Carman,
Rascal
Rascal
Flatts.
Flatts.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rascal Flats, that's back to that 2009 era, around when we went to Yankee Stadium with the 5D. That I got to be a part of shooting a TV show that was behind the scenes of the making of one of their videos. But it was the first show, as far as what we were told, that was to air on network or TV that was shot on a 5D. And so we got to go up to Utah and hang out with these big film crews. They were doing the music video, but we were doing the TV interviews and stuff. Carman, that was at the beginning of my career, right out of school. I got to produce his show called Time 2, and that was really a boot camp for me, because I was kind of a one-man band, and often, as I do, work that way. But I produced one show every month that had like 2 mini drama or comedy sketches. We had interviews we flew around the country for. We had live music that we had a live audience with. We had all the latest bands that would come in, Switchfoot, Newsboys, or whoever was hot during those days. And that show, Carmen's Time 2, aired, I think, on TBN for like 10 years. And I was like, okay, it was good. I feel good about it, but like, okay, now it's, can we do a new one, but so that was kind of, that was a full-time job very much when I did that show.
Well, when did you decide to leave Joel Osteen Ministries and then become a professor at Oral Roberts University?
So around 2017, the end of 2017, I had an opportunity to go film a feature. It was the story of Luis Palau. The producer came to me and said, whom I had met at Lakewood, she was doing a tour there once. She calls me, is like, hey, can you DP this feature for us in Argentina? And I'm like, yes. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But so I ended up leaving Lakewood and doing that, diving into that. In the next month, we were full time into pre-production and then shooting it. So I left there in middle of October, and we were in Argentina first week of January. So, and then the next 2 years, really almost of my life, was consumed with that project. I was the DP. We shot for 14 days, all Argentinian crew, 60-member crew. It was just I had the best time down there. I had such a blast with, working in a foreign country and these beautiful locations and amazing actors. And it was period film too, so everybody was in costume and different time periods. So, I mentioned I just did that thing in the 60s vibe with the horizons open. Well, that even little things like that prepared me for this, because it was the same period. Now, I wasn't the costume designer, but like I kind of had that in my blood on how things should look, and as in terms of a cinematographer. Then I got into editing. Then I was the editor of the project and the post supervisor. So that took quite a while, mostly because of client changes and like, hey, let's change this, and then got to actually see that on this big screen. It was 130 theaters that it was released in, so that was really exciting and something I'd always looked forward to doing one day. And so I hope to do more of those. But
so you left
yeah,
Lakewood, like, I mean, like you just took the
2017. Yeah.
opportunity, but were you already thinking about leaving?
Yeah, I had already been, honestly, I had been kind of wanting to leave there around probably 10 years before that. And, sometimes you're a little slow in following what you're feel in your heart you're supposed to do, but you're like, yeah, but how do you gonna make the mortgage payment? How are you gonna do all these?
And that's what every
you
filmmaker goes through.
yeah, it is. And really, I could have done it fine because, as I mentioned, I had so many side projects that I had to turn them down constantly. But yeah, it was just time, and I really I knew this was the right thing to do. It was that it propelled me to the next phase of just doing full time as running my own company as a solopreneur mostly. But and then fast forward a few years, and this opportunity comes up at ORU. They just built this brand new studio. I had just moved up here to be closer to my daughters and my mom, and so they just built this XR studio, and I'm like, do you guys need help running that? I've never run one, but I know a lot of the things that that I built on in my career to like kind of make that a next logical step. That because I've done a lot of virtual production, a lot of green screen production, a lot of compositing, all those things, cinematography, very heavily into post as most of my career. And so this was just, it was like a opportunity just kind of made for me, really. So,
Well, I have seen where we have virtual production, there's VFX, there's CGI, uh, and there's just so many of these things. Of course, some things appear better on screen than others. Uh, what do you like to use the most out of all of that type of production?
well, I love doing the virtual production here on the XR stage for a lot of things, but it's not for everything. And that's what you learn, like everything is just another tool in your toolbox. So I don't want to shoot on, I still want to shoot on location. I don't want to just shoot in studio all the time. There's a lot of projects that should still be shot on location. But I look at it as, like I said, as a tool. And so it's like, hey, we need a pickup shot that we missed out on that location that's, across the country, and it's just a close up or a medium shot. I mean, that's one way you can use it. Yeah, if you got a background plate, or we can make one that works, we can easily film that, and you would never know. Or you could do whole commercials on here, music videos, interviews. It's great for that because then you don't have to fight the elements. You don't have to worry about the weather, the parking. You don't have to worry about the location falling through. It's cool. I mean, temperature wise, and it's cool.
Well,
But yeah,
with the XR stage, is that the type of setup where let's say you're going to bring in actors and you're going to be filming a scene and the camera pans and moves, is that where the background moves along so that way when people are actually seeing it on the big screen, it looks like you're really outside, or maybe
yeah,
you're
that's
on a,
correct.
a dark alley street or something?
Exactly. So you have that ability to add parallax. You have there's a current camera, and it's communicating information back to these receiver transmitters or receiver trackers that feed it back into Unreal Engine, that then tells that environment to move in the same 3D world that your camera's in. So, but you can also do that with more two-dimensional assets. You kind of like, or we call it 2.5D, where you've got like couple Photoshop layers or movie layers that we can just uh, add a little depth, so that as the camera moves, yes, you get that parallax, the background moves, and it's amazing. Like I mean, it really makes the difference. And really, the thing about shooting on an XR wall is what you see is what you get. So you don't have to worry about post production as much, other than color correction. Um, all your work is front loaded to pre-production. So what's our background? What are our foreground elements, which are very important in doing good XR stuff? Is get props, set pieces, uh, textures, foreground elements that just make it all believable, and let the wall just be like a background element in there. Don't have to necessarily make it the main thing. So it's really about blocking that, blocking the actors, and then lighting that space just as if you were in the real environment, and changing your motivation according to what you see on the screen. And there's a lot of really cool techniques you can do to make it very believable.
Yeah, I've seen it done. The first time I've ever seen it done, I was interviewing a director who did the feature film called No Way Up. And it's this disaster film of a passenger plane that crashes into the ocean. And then you have passengers that are trapped in an air pocket. Well, there's this scene, this underwater scene where they have the lead actress. She escapes, but she has to swim to the surface, and the whole thing was virtual. Not now, the plane was really underwater. That's a whole nother story. Of course, they had a $50
Wow.
million budget, but they used the virtual production, this massive soundstage in the UK, and she was suspended, and you really actually thought she was swimming through the ocean, and it was all virtual production. It was done so well that even the audience could not tell.
Wow. And that's probably, I haven't seen it. I would definitely want to check that out. But it sounds like it's the kind of thing where they use virtual production as one of the ways to complete the sequence. Instead of it all being shot that way, there's probably some practical elements. So like if you see, you're not gonna, if it's hidden in there with other real shots or whatever, then it's a lot easier to blend in, and you'd never know.
Well, tell me about these cinematic lighting classes that you do. I know that you have a website called dansfx.tv. What will
That's
people
right.
find there?
Yeah, so that was a really fun project. We did a live audience. I basically had an actress and a little set that we built in a studio, and I just for 2.5 hours said, "Hey, this is what I would do practically in real time. I'm going to show you. Hey, this is a drama scene, and then in the next 15 minutes later, we'll change that same set into a thriller, into a comedy, whatever." So I just show them just real practical ways of using light to light the set, but also just little fun things that I do, that are not so textbook, but just like real world. What do you do? Like, what fabric do I diffuse with? What happens if I bounce this off this board and come into here, and talking about angles of reflection, and uh, things I learned, like I educated in those things, but also, we talked about earlier, just self-taught. And so it was a lot of fun. And so basically I have edited those into very digestible 5-7 minute modules that are all broken down, and you can just go through those at your own pace. And you can just pick out like a specific topic. Like, I just want to know how to use bounce light, or how we use diffusion, or that kind of thing. So I plan to add a lot more of those. One of them being lighting in a XR studio, and some of the unique challenges and things that you need to know about doing that. So, and then also in editing, I'm working on a Premiere Pro editing masterclass. Then DaVinci I'll do one on that also. So a lot of things in the works.
Well, how big is the XR stage studio that you're in right now?
This studio is about 30 by 40 and a 15-foot grid, and the wall itself is 26 feet by 13 feet, so 26 wide by 13 high, and it's got a 5-degree curve, so that you're able to shoot at an angle a little easier, and it's got garage access right out just 20 feet from where I'm at, right out to the parking lot, so we can bring in a lot of props. And we did a shoot, by the way, that was really probably the most fun we did on the studio, was where we had a professional production designer bring in trees, and like a lot of trees and dirt, and he was basically matching what they had filmed out on location on a farm. It was this post-apocalyptic scene where these guys are fighting each other and hiding and running and shooting each other. And then here they're like, it's kind of the final scene where they're dragging this guy. They think he thinks he's dead, and they had dirt all on the ground in here. You would not know it was not outside. And so we were able to put like clouds moving on the XR wall, and it was all tracked with the camera. He even built like a structure. It was like this blown out kind of shed that was still there. And so that's when it really gets exciting, is when you have the resources to be able to do that. Occasionally we had people just donate their time and for a student project.
Well, can people come in that have projects? Do they come in and, let's say, hire ORU and have you set it all up and do a
Yeah.
film project?
Yeah, no, it definitely, we have that opportunity now, especially in the summer. But between student projects, of course, those are the priority. But we are opening it up to outside projects. Just hit me up, and I'll give you a tour here, or we can do it over Zoom, whatever. And I just filmed a client project here 2 weeks ago. So, and he loved it. It was actually a sermon series with 3 cameras, and we just did it instead of um, on location. So yeah, definitely shoot me a DM on my Instagram, my email. But I'm sure we can probably add that later, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, even so, this space is big enough to where if somebody wanted to come in and do a, let's say, shoot a 15-minute short film, you could pull it off.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what's nice about it is it's not huge, but it's plenty big to do quite a few things. We also have a full array of aperture lighting that's all wirelessly controlled over CRMX, and like a lot of great full grip gear, everything you would need. And we have right next to this wall, on the other side of the wall, there's a garage where 2 grip vans are stored. We have grip van fully equipped 1-ton packages. We have another studio next to us. We've got a green room. We've got a break. We've got like a, uh, a meeting room and a classroom that can be used for production or for wardrobe. We've got yeah, it's just very, oh, and even a scene shop right down the hall. It's a very large scene shop, because this building houses the theater department, the music department, dance, and cinema. So we actually have 3 sound stages this size in this building. This one has the XR studio, but we have adjacent rooms that can accommodate, quite a few crew members, and just storage of props and extras and that kind of thing.
Well, do you have any upcoming film projects that you can share with us?
Well, I always have, how it is. I have a lot of things in the works, but there's one I just came up with randomly the other day. I came up with I want to do a short film that's actually going to be mostly on location, but I'm going to do one scene in here. And I wanted to do something that we could easily film in like 2 or 3 days with a few students that are here for the summer, and then use this as a good demo of what we can do, or how to use XR technology in a short situation, and enter it in some film festivals. I'm also, I forgot, I'm shooting another short in Houston in 2 weeks. Who the producer, the writer, the last film we did together, it was in 19 film festivals. So he plans to really take this far, and he's pushing me to really make it exceptionally good. So I'm excited. It'll be uh, some more filmmaking coming up here. We'll keep the creative juices flowing.
So, what advice do you have for the young people who want to be the next Quentin Tarantino or Steven Spielberg?
I would say, I mean, I think a lot of people probably say this, but use what you have first. If you have a phone, if you have a VHS camera, those are cool now, right? Whatever you have, use it, learn to tell stories, and just make mistakes, do the thing, just get into it and learn a lot on your own. But study films, great directors, the ones you mentioned, and even back to the black and white days if you can. Be a student of film and TV series and great series, and think about what you're seeing. But one of the things I like to do is, like, if to really study some like directing or editing, is just turn off the sound and just watch, and it immediately takes you kind of, switches your brain into a more analytical mode, so you're able to see the cuts easier, you're able to see some of the details. Same thing I'll do. I will record, or I did this back in the DVD days more, but I'd rip the audio and I'd play movies in my car and I would listen. So conversely, it helped me understand mixing more and editing dialogue and writing more, because I'm not distracted by the picture. Those are a couple of practical things I like to do. But, in terms of learning on set, get on a real set if you can, learn from other people, and have a really humble attitude, one that you want to give and you want to serve. Learn how to serve others. Don't just think about your project. Think about how I can be the best person for this director, for this DP, for this assistant cameraman. How can you, as a PA or whatever, just do it with the best attitude, and you will be surprised later you'll be hired back, and you'll do some really great things if you can learn those very simple but important
Yeah, that's
lessons.
very, very wise advice because you're there to learn. And like you said, and I think a lot of people forget that element of serving because that's the best way for you to learn, but it's also the easiest way to get noticed. And
That's right.
it's all in the attitude. So I have to ask, what is your favorite film of all time? But what is your favorite cinematic film as well?
Oh wow, you didn't even prep me on it, but I have so many. I mean, the one I always go to, and my daughters know this, is like my favorite film, like as far as just on so many levels, is like The Bourne Supremacy, The Bourne Identity, um, specifically The Supremacy, number two. I like them all. I love that whole concept. I have a feature that I wrote that's kind of in that same genre. Hunt for Red October. Um, let's see. I can't pick one. Can I just pick like five?
Pick five. Pick five.
Okay. Um, Days of Heaven, cinematically. That would be my, I guess, one of the cinematic ones. Um, I'll pick some. I'll pick a few based on probably ones you don't hear often as much. Let's see. Uh, oh, I was trying to think of. Hold on a second. It's coming. It's shot by Alan Davio, director Steven Spielberg. It's been a while since I saw it. Empire of the Sun. Christian Bale was in that. You ever see that one?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, beautiful, very cinematic film. I think that's probably when I really started paying attention more to named cinematographers, the great ASC members. That was Alan Davio. Um, and I just remember the way he used beams of light, shafts of light just coming through, and just uh, beautiful stuff. Do I have one more film I should
Yeah.
mention?
Yeah.
Let's say The Man Who Knew Too Much. I love Hitchcock movies, and that one always I can just rewatch over and over.
Yeah. They said that Spielberg's War Horse would be considered probably one of the most cinematic films ever made. And
Really?
I think that was Spielberg's only goal on that film was to try to prove and stretch the point of cinematography. Um, I loved the black and white cinematography of Maestro, but I feel that the film may have been too polished,
Hmm.
and
You know,
I think Chariots of Fire.
oh, Chariots of Fire, I is one of my all-time favorites. And photography, everything, but actually, and that's gonna just. I gotta name a couple other movies. Now you just reminded me of one. Of course, Blade Runner, cinematography, but then also In the Mood for Love. I would say one of the most cinematic movies to me, because it's like the perfect example of poetry in motion and cinema. Like what do I think cinema is? It's like, okay, you want to evoke emotion, but poetically, visually, poetically. And so that movie is One Car Y, um, and just gorgeous, gorgeous film.
You know what? I always use the example, uh, and you've heard this. People talk about faith-based films, and how they all started out kind of low quality. Now we can see films at a much higher quality, and they keep getting better and better. And I look back at Chariots of Fire, that if Chariots of Fire was made today, it would have never been nominated for an Oscar, and they would have shoved it in the faith-based genre, and nobody would have ever seen it.
Wow. I never thought of that. It's funny because I literally just I just I watched it again just a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's one of those movies. I mean, I saw it came out because they back then it was a big deal because they showed it in churches. It was kind of one of the first faith-based movies. Why you probably brought it up, and they showed it at our church. Really, that as I grew into filmmaking, that I appreciated it more. Like, this is a work of art, and I would say the mission is also similar because it was similar time period, similar. I think it was the same producer, David Putnam. I might be wrong on that. Chris Menges, that was the DP on both of those. I think. No, that's not right. He was on the mission, but um, yeah, I think I love those kind of movies, and they still hold up today though. Like the production quality on those, the production design, like the costumes and everything is just.
Well,
And
yeah, and
who
it
makes music
won.
like Vangelis?
Yeah, it won the Oscar for best costume. Of course, a lot of people were mad about that because that was the year in which Bob Mackie should have won the Oscar for best costume design, and loses to a costume of nothing but a t-shirt with a number sewn on it. So there was a bunch of arguments about
What was the
that.
Bob Mackie one?
No,
What
Bob
was the
Mackie
Bob Mackie?
lost that year to the one that did Chariots of Fire. And I had seen an interview with Carol Burnett. She was, even to this day, she's still mad about it because she's a
That's
very close,
hilarious.
yeah, she's a very close friend with Bob Mackie. And it was so funny, but I get it.
What was the movie though? What was the movie he did?
It was a
Do
movie
you remember?
with, I think it was with Steve Martin and Bernadette
Oh,
Peters. It was like this musical. I mean, there were like 150 costumes. I mean, it was like
oh wow,
flamboyant, and you lose to a
yeah.
t-shirt.
Well, I guess they could look at it that way, but in all fairness, that movie had so many costumes. Chariots of Fire. Like I think about like the school scene and all those school. That's I wasn't even thinking about the white on the track. That's like the least of the obviously like, but all the very intricate period clothing in that movie is amazing.
Oh yeah,
All the
yeah, and
suits they were wearing, and yeah.
well, and to me, and I talk to a lot of filmmakers that are under the age of 30. And it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing where you get some of the young ones that go back in time to watch older films. And then there are films that they'll go, "Oh, I've never seen that." And it's amazing how many people have never seen Chariots of Fire. And we all look at Steven Spielberg's Jaws as like that's what every filmmaker needs to watch. But they
Yeah,
also need to
yeah,
watch things like 1948's Bicycle Thieves. They need to look at Chariots of Fire, and there's other films that you can just watch and learn, not just in the areas of cinematography, but also on how to tell a story.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, um, I think if I'm just thinking of other random movies like Dr. Zhivago, like in terms of epic storytelling, or any of the David Lean, Lawrence of Arabia, but the smaller movies, like What It Happened One Night, or 12 Angry Men, or, I like a lot of I love The Conversation with Gene Hackman, I mean, a small film that was just so well done. And I love that, just the audio editing aspect of that movie, the way that Coppola used that. Of course, The Godfather. It goes without saying. I love the
Oh,
guy. And I
yeah.
rewatch that. Like every other year, I'll rewatch it. Um, yeah.
Well, that's
So
gosh, you. I can't believe we didn't bring up The Godfather because
I know.
everybody brings up Jaws, but The
Oh,
Godfather
and
is
I love
considered.
Jaws. Like, yeah. And there's something about Jaws too. Like that has a very specific emotion. Besides the scary part, it's the parts about that movie I love is how Spielberg is able to direct multiple people, and all the extras going in the scene, like when, or just the shot of the inverse, dolly zoom going into um, what's his name's character when he's got the cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and or when he's talking to the mayor, just the dialogue, how he blocked those scenes. There's so many more details. Or when they're in the house, the interaction of the husband and wife in the house. Spielberg is a master at blocking scenes. I think about like E.T. when he's all the crowds are, the people are from the whole neighborhood are going around the cul-de-sac when they're like the emergency vehicles are there and stuff, and the complicated camera moves going around that. I mean, yeah,
Well,
and I have to admit, I'm sorry,
no, go
Schindler's
ahead.
List. Schindler's
Oh,
List is one.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
cinematically, it doesn't get much better.
no, and I think and I love black and white. There's just something to black and white. And I've seen in the past few years some short films shot in black and white, and they are just absolutely stellar. But one of my favorite Spielberg film of all time, besides Jaws, is Duel with Dennis Weaver.
Oh,
His very first film. And if
yes.
people, I have Steven Spielberg's film book where he tells every story on how every one of his films were made. And if you understand the story of Duel, you fall in love with it even more
Oh,
because
I
the
need to
way
get
that
that
it was
book.
shot.
Wow. That movie is a very important movie to me in the formation of my filmmaking career, because that's one of the few movies that I watched with my dad on TV, because he was like, "Oh, we got to watch this movie," and he wasn't really a movie watcher so much. But that was one of the moments I'll never forget. That's when I really learned who Spielberg was, and just the tension of what he can do with two main character or one character, and a kind of the other character being the truck that we never saw the driver of, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny is that not only do I love Duel, people always ask me, "Well, what's your favorite film?" I go, "Well, just to say a favorite, I always loved Die Hard, but the only reason I love the original Die Hard is because I love the fact of watching Bruce Willis act with nobody else around him. So to
Yeah,
pull off those scenes where you are not working off of another actor and you're doing it by yourself. So when I looked at Duel and then I looked at Die Hard, I love the stretch that an actor has to go through by himself.
that's a great observation. Yeah, I never thought that about Die Hard. That's very true. Uh, yeah, that really shows performance chops, really. But it's also in a way I didn't even think about it. Right, so that's how good it was. Did you ever see the one of the? It was either the first or second episode of Sorry, my memory is. What's
Is it streaming series?
Yeah, no, old show. I love the show. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Columbo, Columbo.
I remember watching
Uh,
Columbo.
so did you
Yeah,
know that Spielberg that he directed? It was either the first or second episode.
I've read that.
Eh, yeah, it's on streaming, and I got like I think during 2020 I like binged like all of Columbo, and I came across that. I'm like the credits comes up directed by Steven Spielberg, and I'm like, I didn't know he did that. Of course, I'm an IMDb freak too. I'm just constantly just have that going whenever I'm watching something.
I live on
But it is,
IMDb.
yeah, me too. But that's a really fascinating episode. I love the whole series, but that particular episode to just study it as because it was not. I think it was right before Jaws, and so you kind of get a little bit insight of kind of where he was directorially,
Oh
at
yeah,
that
yeah, it
time.
was. Yeah, Duel, and then him doing the directing on that episode for Columbo. They were both before Jaws, and Jaws
Yeah.
was that big break. And here we're in the 50th anniversary of Jaws right
Oh
now.
wow.
And
Wow.
so it's being re-released to theaters. I don't know if it's August or September. So it's going to be back in the theater, and I want to go see it back on the big screen,
Oh, me
and
too.
just to experience that all over again, because again, we know The Godfather is number 1.
Right.
Jaws is right there. And you being a very experienced cinematographer, of all of the film directors still alive today, who would you like to work with?
Oh man, who would I want to work with? I mean, um, Alejandro Inarritu probably would be one. And I some of his films I love. Of course, Christopher Nolan. That I mean, low hanging fruit, right?
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to pick somebody that yeah, I really liked his films, Babel, um, and The Revenant, which talk about cinematic. I mean, my gosh. Um, but he's just very, very talk about cinematic or use that term, but he's just very uh, thought. He's very he thinks everything through. Like everything's there. It's just very uh, just on purpose. Like the way he does it is just very poetic. Very. It's always visually stunning. Everything he does. He always works with the great cinematographers. Like Lubeski um, and so those are yeah, that's probably one. Another one. I don't know what he's doing much lately, but Paul Greengrass. He did.
Well, hey, did your battery die? Mm. Yeah, check your audio if you can hear me.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I'm
can hear
back. I'm
you
so
now.
sorry.
That's
Oh
all
my
right.
gosh, I'm sorry.
That's what post production
Can
is
you edit
for.
this? Oh, okay.
That's all good.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, that's all
What were
good.
we just saying?
Oh, you were naming directors
Oh
that
yeah.
you would love to work with.
I think you got most of that probably, right? Did I?
Yeah,
Let's
I
see.
did.
I was,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, I give you, and I guess the good thing is we're basically at the end of here to wrap up. And Dan, I've enjoyed the conversation with you today.
I have had a blast, Ward. I really appreciate you inviting me onto this amazing platform that you've built, and so I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I can't wait to finally get up to Tulsa and hopefully take the tour of the XR stage up there that you're using.
Please do. I'll give you the nickel, maybe the dime, maybe the quarter tour. But no, I'm happy to. I love showing off this place. It's a really fun place to hang out. And if anybody else is watching, I'd be happy to give you a tour as well.
Yeah, and for those of you out there that are up and coming filmmakers and you need to expand your education, you may want to enroll at Oral Roberts University and be personally taught by the one and only Dan Rubottom. So, again, Dan, I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your filmmaking background with all of us today. And what is the best website for people to go to learn more about you?
You can go to danrubottom.com. That's my kind of home base one. And then danseffects.tv is the best one for the master classes that I'm putting on there. But really, the best way to find me is Instagram. That's kind of where I'm most active.
Yeah,
So that's Dan Rubottom. Yeah.
yeah, that's the best place for every filmmaker is Instagram, and I think it exceeds TikTok when it comes to making connections with filmmakers. And for all of you out there, connect with Dan Rubottom. He again over 36 years of experience in the areas of filmmaking at the highest level. So the greatest thing about the film industry is we all want to work together and we all want to learn from one another. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us, well, on your way to work or at play on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. So, I want to thank all of you for watching. You're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.